Forgotten frequencies, Thorne adjusted the dials on his console, filtering through the static that filled the communications hub. Around him, the gleaming surfaces of Somnicorp's Harmony division reflected the blue glow of dozens of monitors, each tracking citizens who had undergone realignment. As a communications technician, his job was simple: monitor the frequencies for anomalies, report irregularities, and never question the gaps. He had been doing this for 5 years. At least, that's what his employment record indicated. Sometimes, he wondered about the blank month in his file from last winter, but such thoughts were discouraged. Director Simmons called these wonderings echo fixations, harmless but unproductive. "Sector 4 looks clean," announced Wren, his supervisor, peering over his shoulder. "Any ripples on the southeast quadrant?" "Nothing unusual," Thorne replied, though something about frequency 87.3 made his fingers hesitate. Every time he scanned past it, a strange ache formed behind his ribs, like muscle memory responding to a forgotten song. Wren nodded and moved on to the next station. Once alone, Thorne slipped a small device from beneath his console, a modified scanner he'd built from discarded parts. Against protocol, certainly, but he'd been documenting these strange feelings for weeks now. The scanner recorded frequency patterns that the official equipment deliberately filtered out. That night in his apartment, Thorne analyzed the day's recordings. His living space was standard issue for mid-level technicians: efficient, minimalist, and monitored. He kept his legitimate hobbies visible: technical manuals, approved music recordings, and synthetic plants. His unauthorized activities remained hidden in an old radio he'd modified, its components disguised as outdated decorative features. As the scanner replayed frequency 87.3, a sound emerged from the static, something like laughter, quickly subsumed by white noise. His pulse quickened. The tone pattern matched something he'd heard before, somewhere beyond his accessible memories. Thorne's terminal chimed with an incoming message. It was his weekly reminder for a wellness calibration tomorrow, standard procedure for all Somnicorp employees. He never felt quite right after these sessions, his thoughts slightly rearranged like furniture moved an inch to the left. He pulled out his secret journal, bound in actual paper, a rarity in this digital age and therefore unlikely to be scanned. Inside were notes about recurring dreams, a garden with purple flowers that didn't exist in the authorized botanical catalog, music played on instruments he couldn't name, and a voice that called him by a name that wasn't his. The next morning, Thorne arrived at work early. He had 15 minutes before anyone else would arrive, enough time to access the restricted archives. His clearance shouldn't have allowed it, but he discovered a system glitch months ago and carefully preserved it. In the dimly lit server room, he searched for frequency 87.3 in the historical database. Nothing appeared in the official records, but when he ran his modified scanner, he found something curious: a deliberate gap. Someone had systematically erased all instances of this frequency from the records. As he dug deeper, an alert flashed on his screen. His search had triggered a silent alarm. Footsteps approached outside. Quickly disconnecting, Thorne slipped back to his workstation just as Director Simmons entered with 2 memory technicians in white coats. "Thorne," Simmons smiled thinly, "you're early today." "Just getting ahead on the southeast quadrant scans," he replied evenly, though his heart hammered in his chest. "Commendable," said Simmons, studying him. "By the way, your wellness calibration has been rescheduled for today. These technicians will escort you." As they led him down the sterile hallway, Thorne noticed something through a half-open door: a specialized console tuned precisely to frequency 87.3, actively broadcasting. And beside it, a file with a name he couldn't quite read before being pulled away. But he caught one word: Perseus. It meant nothing to him consciously, yet sent electric recognition through his body, like remembering something he'd never actually forgotten. Ghost signals. The calibration room was clinically bright, all glossy surfaces and the sharp scent of antiseptic. Thorne sat in the reclined chair as the technicians attached monitoring pads to his temples. Routine maintenance, said the taller technician, her voice deliberately soothing. You might experience minor disorientation afterward. Thorne nodded, feigning calm compliance. As the machine hummed to life, he employed a technique he'd developed over months, creating mental partitions. The surface thoughts he surrendered, willingly. His work schedule, apartment details, approved friendships. But beneath that, he visualized a locked box containing his true concerns. The frequency, the word Perseus, his unauthorized searches. The machine pulsed. Images flashed before him. Approved recreational activities, workplace protocols, civic responsibilities. Then, unexpectedly, a flicker of something else. Purple flowers, a hand touching his, laughter that matched the sound in the static. Anomaly. Detected, murmured the second technician. Increasing suppression parameters. Pain lanced through Thorne's skull as the machine delved deeper. He clenched his teeth, concentrating on his mental barriers. When the process finally ended, he felt hollowed out, his thoughts foggy. All done, announced the first technician cheerfully. You're harmonized for another month. Report any discomfort to wellness services. They released him with a clean report, unaware their calibration had missed crucial fragments. As Thorne walked back to his station, he passed Director Simmons speaking with a tall woman in a black uniform he didn't recognize. Confirmed signal leakage in Sector 7, the woman was saying. Someone's accessing the echo chamber. Simmons's gaze flicked toward Thorne, who kept his expression neutral while memorizing every word. That night, Thorne didn't go home. Instead, he took a maintenance tunnel to Level B, where he changed into service coveralls stolen from a supply closet. With forged credentials, he boarded a waste disposal transport heading to the city's outer sectors, beyond Somnicorp's immediate surveillance. The transport descended into the Undercity, where the gleaming towers of Somnicorp's domain gave way to improvised structures and repurposed technology. Here lived those who couldn't afford memory maintenance or had been deemed unsuitable for harmonization, people with neurological differences that rejected standard memory protocols. Thorne had researched this place through fragmented records, but reality was different, vibrant despite the poverty, alive with uncensored music and conversation. He moved through crowded markets where vendors sold banned foods and devices that scrambled monitoring signals. Following coordinates derived from the frequency pattern, he arrived at a decrepit building covered in wild vines. Actual organic plants, not the synthetic varieties permitted above ground. A faded sign read, Radio Observatory Pre-Unification Research Center. Inside, ancient equipment hummed alongside modern modifications. A handful of people worked at makeshift consoles, all wearing small devices behind their ears. Blockers, he realized, to prevent remote memory access. An older man with mechanical augmentations covering half his face approached. You don't belong here, Upper Side. I'm following frequency 87.3, Thorne said quietly, and something called Perseus. The man's augmented eye whirred as it focused. Who sent you? No one. I hear it. In my dreams. In the static between transmissions. A long silence followed before the man gestured toward a door. Vesper handles the ghost signals. Your funeral if you're lying. The room beyond was filled with jury-rigged broadcasting equipment. A woman stood with her back to him, adjusting, dials on what appeared to be a modified Somnicorp memory scanner. Her dark hair was cropped short, with a streak of electric blue running through it. Someone's looking for Perseus, the augmented man announced. She turned, and Thorne felt the floor shift beneath him. Her eyes, deep amber with flecks of gold, triggered something primal in his memory. Not recognition exactly, but a sense of rightness, like finding the correct frequency after hours of static. I don't know any Perseus, she said, her voice sending another jolt through him. But you? She studied him intently. You're broadcasting on my frequency. How is that possible? I work in communications at Somnicorp. I found anomalies in Somnicorp? Her expression hardened as others in the room tensed. And you just walked in here? Are you insane? I'm not here officially, Thorne explained quickly. I discovered a frequency that's been deliberately erased from our records. It led me here. Vesper approached him cautiously, circling as if he might be a mirage. What's your designation? Thorn. Communications Technician 247. No, your real designation. Before Somnicorp. The question confused him. There is no before. I've always worked there. Something like pity crossed her face. She picked up a small device and held it near his temple. It emitted the exact frequency, 87.3, that had haunted him. Thorn gasped as images flooded his mind. Himself in different clothes, laughing beside a transmitter, hands intertwined with someone else's, a garden with those same purple flowers, and a name whispered in his ear that wasn't Thorn. Perseus. Isn't a what? Vesper said softly as she lowered the device. It's a who, and I think it might be you. Resonance patterns. That's impossible, Thorn whispered, steadying himself against a console as the echo of that strange name, Perseus, resonated through him. I've been Thorn my entire life. Your entire documented life, Vesper corrected. She gestured to the others who discreetly left the room. When they were alone, she continued. Somnicorp doesn't just wipe specific memories. For high-value targets, they rewrite entire identities. She activated a holographic display showing brain scan patterns. These are normal memory wipes, clean, precise excisions. But this, she pulled up another scan with strange branching, patterns like lightning. This is you 3 days ago when you first detected our frequency. Thorn stared at the scan. How did you get this? We have people inside. Not everyone at Somnicorp believes in what they're doing. Vesper's fingers brushed against her temple where a small scar was barely visible. I used to work there too, in development. Over the next few hours, Vesper explained how she had been part of a research team developing more humane memory technologies, ones that would help people with trauma without erasing their core identities. When Somnicorp shifted to government, contracts for social harmonization, her team resisted. They were scheduled for complete wipes, but some escaped. We've been broadcasting specific resonance patterns, she explained, adjusting her equipment. Signals that can sometimes activate suppressed memory pathways in people who've been wiped. Most never respond, but occasionally. Someone hears it, Thorn finished. Exactly. She studied him carefully. The question is, why are you hearing a frequency calibrated to my neural pattern? In the days that followed, Thorn established a precarious double life. During the day, he maintained his role at Somnicorp, carefully navigating increased security protocols. At night, he slipped away to the Undercity, where Vesper and her colleagues ran tests and gradually exposed him to memory resonance patterns. Progress was slow and disorienting. Fragments would surface, a conversation about radio wave propagation, the smell of real coffee, a sunset viewed from somewhere high above the city, only to slip away again, leaving him frustrated and drained. Memories aren't just data, Vesper explained one evening as they sat in her small living quarters, surrounded by salvaged tech and the forbidden luxury of paper books. They're connected to emotions, sensory experiences. We need to recreate contexts, not just information. She handed him a mug of actual tea, another rarity, their fingers briefly touching. The simple contact sent a shock of familiarity through him. Try this, she said, activating a small device that filled the room with soft music, a complex melody that made Thorn's chest tighten with unidentifiable emotion. I know this, he whispered, closing his eyes. We danced to this, somewhere, with large windows. You were wearing something blue. Vesper's eyes widened. That's right, how did you... I don't know. It just appeared. He looked at her with growing certainty. We knew each other, didn't we? Before. She nodded slowly. We worked together on the Resonance Project. You were our communications specialist, developing ways to encode emotional data into transmission frequencies. And were we... He hesitated, uncertain how to articulate the feeling that pulsed between them. Colleagues, she said carefully. Close ones. but something in her voice suggested more. A careful restraint, perhaps protecting him from too much, too soon. As weeks passed, Thorne grew bolder in his information gathering at Somnicorp. He discovered his file had been flagged for enhanced monitoring following the calibration session. Director Simmons had ordered specialized scans of his workstation, seeking evidence of unauthorized frequency detection. Meanwhile, in the Undercity, his connection with Vesper deepened. They worked side by side, her knowledge of neural pathways complementing his growing skill with frequency modulation. Together, they developed more sophisticated resonance patterns that helped other ghosts, wiped individuals, recover fragments of their past. One night, as they calibrated a new transmitter, their hands brushed again. This time, neither pulled away. In the soft glow of the equipment, Thorne studied her face. The determined set of her jaw, the careful precision of her movements, the way her eyes lit up when a frequency aligned perfectly. "I think we were more than colleagues," he said quietly. Vespers, hands stilled. "We agreed not to push memories. They need to return naturally or they might not integrate properly." "This isn't from memory," he insisted. "It's now. The way I feel when we work together, when you explain something complicated, when you laugh at those terrible jokes Ruben tells." A small smile touched her lips. "His jokes are objectively terrible." "Objectively," Thorne agreed, smiling back. They were interrupted by Ruben himself, the augmented man who had first greeted Thorne, bursting into the room. "Somnicorp security just entered the sector," he announced grimly. "And they're using resonance scanners. They're looking for specific neural patterns." "Mine," Vesper realized, already shutting down equipment. "Both of yours," Ruben corrected, tossing Thorne a blocker device. "They're tracking your paired resonance. Whatever you two were before, they've figured out you've reconnected." As alarms began to sound throughout the facility, Thorne caught Vesper's gaze across the rapidly darkening room. In her eyes he saw not fear but fierce resolve, and something else that echoed in his own heart, something neither Somnicorp's machines nor the passage of time had managed to fully erase. Interference. They fled through maintenance tunnels as Somnicorp drones scanned the Undercity, their blockers barely masking their neural signatures. Vesper led Thorne to a hidden safe house, a forgotten server room from before the unification, its walls lined with copper mesh that scrambled detection equipment. "They shouldn't have been able to track our resonance patterns so precisely," Vesper said, checking the ancient security monitors. "Someone must have upgraded their detection algorithms." "It might be my fault," Thorne admitted. "I've been careless at work. Simmons has been watching me." The safe house door slid open, revealing Juniper, a former Somnicorp neurologist who had joined the Resistance years ago. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes sharp behind round spectacles. "They've deployed resonance hunters," she announced grimly, "and they're using the echo chamber." The name triggered another flash in Thorne's mind, a massive, spherical room filled with specialized equipment, designed to amplify and trace specific neural patterns across the city. He had seen it once, he realized, not as a technician, but as something else. "The echo chamber was theoretical," Vesper protested. "We never built it." "They completed it after you were scheduled for wiping," Juniper explained, "using your research." The revelation hit Vesper hard. She sank into a chair, her face pale. "My work was meant to help people recover from trauma, not hunt them down." Juniper placed a small device on the table between them. "This was smuggled out by one of our people. It contains Somnicorp's file on both of you." The holographic display flickered to life, showing two images side by side. Vesper as she was now and a younger version in Somnicorp researcher attire. Beside her was an image that made Thorne's breath catch. Himself, but with longer hair and different eyes, labeled not as Thorne but as Perseus Nowakowski, head of quantum communications. "You weren't just colleagues," Juniper said softly. "You were the breakthrough team. And you were married." The word landed like a physical blow. Married. Not just connected by work or friendship, but by choice and commitment. "Why would they separate us?" Thorne asked, his voice barely steady. Why not just wipe both of us completely? Because your work was too valuable, Juniper explained. They needed your skills but not your ethics, so they kept your technical abilities while erasing everything that made you resistant to their goals. Vesper reached for Thorn's hand, her fingers intertwining with his in a gesture that felt both new and achingly familiar. There's more, Juniper continued. The reason they're hunting you so aggressively now is this. She pointed to a classified section of the file. You developed something called a neural tether, a technology that could permanently link two minds, allowing shared memory access even after wiping attempts. Did we use it? Thorn asked. According to this, you had just completed it when you were discovered. You never had the chance to implement it fully. Juniper's expression grew grave. But the prototype still exists, hidden somewhere only the two of you would know. An alarm blared from the security monitors. Somnicorp forces had entered their sector, led by Director Simmons himself. We need to leave, Vesper said, already gathering essential equipment. If they've activated the echo chamber, nowhere in the city is safe for long. As they prepared to flee, Thorn's gaze lingered on the image of his former self. The man he had been before Somnicorp had hollowed him out and rebuilt him. A man who had loved the brilliant woman beside him enough to create a technology that might transcend even the most aggressive memory wipe. I know where it is, he said suddenly, the realization breaking through like sunlight. The neural tether. I know exactly where we hid it. Harmonic convergence dawn broke over the abandoned observatory on the city's outskirts as Thorn and Vesper approached the dilapidated structure. Once a center for astronomical research, it had been forgotten after the unification, too remote to repurpose, too insignificant to destroy. Here? Vesper asked, studying the crumbling dome. The stars, Thorn explained, memories crystallizing with each step. We used to come here to escape surveillance. You said the old radio telescopes had the perfect dish configuration for amplifying neural signals. Inside, dust covered antiquated equipment and star charts from a more curious era. Thorn moved with growing certainty toward a panel in the floor bearing the constellation Perseus, his namesake. We encoded the location in plain sight, he said, kneeling to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small case containing two delicate neural interfaces, like slender circlets designed to rest against the temples. The neural tether, Vesper whispered. Thorn carefully lifted them. This was our contingency plan. If they ever separated us, we would find each other and use this to restore what they took. The distant whir of Somnicorp aircraft broke the silence. The echo chamber had found them. We don't have time to test it, Vesper said urgently. The original design required careful calibration, proper shielding. We don't have those luxuries now. Thorn held out one of the circlets to her. You said memories are connected to emotions, not just data. Our connection remained despite everything they did. That has to count for something. Their eyes met in silent communication as Somnicorp forces surrounded the observatory. Director Simmons's voice boomed through amplifiers. Perseus Novakowski, Dr. Vesper Kane. By order of the Ministry of Harmony, surrender the unauthorized technology and submit to immediate recalibration. With trembling hands, they placed the neural tethers against their temples. The devices activated with a soft blue glow, sending tendrils of light across their skin like constellations. Whatever happens, Thorn said, taking her hands in his. Remember that I found you twice. I'll find you again if I have to. No need, Vesper replied with fierce determination. This time we stay together. They activated the synchronization sequence as Somnicorp forces breached the doors. The neural tethers pulsed, creating a feedback loop between their minds. Pain came first, blinding and overwhelming as years of suppressed memories crashed through artificial barriers. Then, clarity. Their shared past unfurled like a map. Their first meeting at the research division, late nights developing resonance technology, their wedding under actual stars, and finally, their desperate plan when they discovered Somnicorp's true intentions. As their consciousness merged, the neural tethers expanded their connection outward, broadcasting their combined resonance pattern at a frequency that matched the echo chamber itself. Throughout the city, thousands of recalibrated citizens suddenly paused as fragments of authentic memory flickered through enforced compliance. The Somnicorp forces faltered, their own implanted directives temporarily disrupted by the resonance wave. In that moment of chaos, Thorn and Vesper, now fully restored as Perseus and Vesper, activated the observatory's ancient transmitter, amplifying their neural pattern across the entire network. "You tried to erase us," Perseus addressed Simmons, whose mental conditioning was visibly failing under the resonance assault. "But you could only erase data, not connection, not love." The neural tethers had succeeded beyond their original design, creating not just a bridge between two minds but a template for others to reclaim what had been taken from them. As the sun rose higher over the observatory, the air hummed with possibility. Their fight was far from over. Somnicorp's control was momentarily disrupted, not destroyed. But for the first time since the unification, genuine memory flowed freely through the static, creating pathways home for countless lost minds. Perseus looked at Vesper, both of them whole at last. "Ready for what comes next?" She smiled, their fingers intertwined like the dual signals now pulsing through the city. Together this time. They can't erase what we've become. Behind them, the ancient radio telescope turned slowly toward the rising sun, broadcasting not just their memories but their promise. What is real cannot remain forgotten forever.